Flights are $1,000 each. My mom said through the phone, her voice dripping with that familiar, condescending tone. If you cannot afford it, stay behind. I nodded to myself in my modest studio apartment, swallowing the sting of being excluded from another family vacation to Hawaii. As I hung up, still processing her dismissive words, my phone buzzed with a credit card alert. 4 business class tickets purchased, not by me. Heart pounding, I opened my banking app, hit dispute all, and locked the account immediately. Minutes later, aggressive knocking echoed through my door. My hands trembled as I approached the peephole. My father Gerald stood in the hallway, his face flushed crimson with fury, his fist raised to pound again. The veins in his neck bulged like twisted ropes. Armida, open this door right now. His voice carried enough volume to wake the entire floor. What did you do to the credit card? I pressed my back against the door, my breathing shallow. Dad, I'm not opening the door. We need to talk through this. There's nothing to talk through. You unlock that account this instant. He kicked the door, making the frame rattle. This is a family emergency. My phone rang. Shane, my younger brother. His voice panicked and breathless. Armida, what's going on? Mom and Dad are stranded at the airport. The tickets got declined or something. Shane, where are you right now? I'm here with them. Everyone's looking at us. Mom's crying in the terminal. His voice cracked. The gate agent says our tickets were purchased with a disputed card. They won't let us board. My stomach dropped to my knees. Shane, I never bought those tickets. Someone used my card without permission. What, that's impossible. Dad said you agreed to pay for the family trip. Through the door, Gerald's voice boomed again. Armida, you're embarrassing this family. Your mother is having a breakdown at LAX. I opened my laptop and logged into my credit card account through their website. My hands shook as I scrolled through months of statements. My breath caught in my throat. Charge after charge I had never made. Expensive dinners at steakhouses I had never visited. Golf club memberships. A luxury spa day for $250. Shane's college tuition payment of $4,300. Dad, I called through the door, my voice steadier now. How long have you been using my credit card? Silence. Then quieter. I don't know what you're talking about. The spa visit on March 15th. The country club membership fee. Shane's tuition payment last month. I read the charges aloud, my voice growing stronger with each item. Were you planning to tell me or just keep stealing until my credit was destroyed? Now you listen here, young lady. His tone shifted, becoming more menacing. I am your father. I put food in your mouth and clothes on your back for 18 years. You owe me. I owe you nothing that involves identity theft. Shane's voice came through my phone again. Armida, please. Mom's having chest pains. People are staring. The security guards are asking questions. Shane put Dad on the phone. He can't hear me. He's outside your door. I realized Gerald was using me as his personal ATM while simultaneously excluding me from family events. The vacation I was supposedly funding was the same vacation I was told I could not afford. Dad, I'm calling the police if you don't leave my building right now. You wouldn't dare call the police on your own father. I dialed 911 and put the call on speaker. I need to report someone harassing me at my apartment complex. His footsteps retreated quickly. I heard the elevator doors close. Through my phone, Shane's voice became desperate. Armida, they're saying we need to purchase new tickets or leave the airport. Mom's talking about calling the police on you. For what? She says you stole money from Dad's business account. My blood turned to ice water. Shane, I have never taken money from anyone. Dad has been using my credit card without my knowledge or permission. That's called fraud. But the family business, what about the family business? You're listed as a partner, right? Dad said you have access to business funds. I had never signed any business documents. I had never been to Gerald's landscaping company office. I had never even seen a business license with my name on it. Shane, I need you to listen very carefully. I am not a business partner. I have never authorized anyone to use my credit cards. What Dad did is illegal. The line went quiet except for airport announcement background noise. Shane. I'm here. This is really messed up, Armida. I know. Are you safe right now? Yeah. Dad went to make some phone calls. Mom's in the bathroom. Good. I need you to stay away from them until I figure this out. Can you get home by yourself? I think so. I have my debit card. After Shane hung up, I sat on my apartment floor staring at months of fraudulent charges. The pattern was clear. Gerald had been systematically using my financial information while keeping me financially isolated from family activities. He wanted my money, but not my presence. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You just destroyed your family. I hope you're happy. The number belonged to my mother. I spent the next morning researching online, searching for any business records containing my name. What I discovered made my hands shake so violently I could barely type. Green Family Enterprises, LLC, Gerald's landscaping business, registered with the state of California. Business partners listed Gerald Thomas Green and Armida Rose Green. I had never signed incorporation documents. I had never agreed to be a business partner. I had never even seen the inside of Gerald's office. My phone rang. Patricia, my mother, her voice broken and weepy. Armida, sweetheart, please listen to me. She sounded exhausted, defeated. Your father made me do it. Made you do what, Mom? All of it. The credit cards, the business partnership, everything. Her voice dissolved into sobs. He said we were going to lose the house. He said Shane would have to drop out of college. My chest tightened. Mom, what exactly did you do? I gave him your social security number. I took pictures of your driver's license when you visited last Christmas. I helped him fill out the business partnership paperwork. Each confession came out between gasps. He said it was temporary. He promised he would fix everything before you ever found out. I closed my eyes, feeling the betrayal settle into my bones like a cold, heavy stone. How long has this been going on? 2 years, maybe longer. Her voice became smaller. The landscaping business has been struggling since the drought regulations started. We couldn't get new contracts. The existing clients started doing their own yard work. So you decided to ruin my credit instead of telling me the truth. We didn't want to burden you with our problems. You were just getting started with your career. I pulled up my credit report on my laptop. Multiple accounts I had never opened. A business loan for $37,000. 2 additional credit cards with maxed out balances. A home equity line of credit. Mom, there's a business loan on my credit report for $37,000. Silence. Mom, your father needed equipment. The old mowers were breaking down constantly. He said if the business started making money again, we could pay it all back. And the home equity line of credit, we refinanced the house 6 months ago. The mortgage payment was getting too high. Using my name and credit. Your father said your credit score was better than ours. I felt like I was drowning in quicksand. Every answer revealed deeper levels of betrayal. Mom, I could go to prison for fraud if anyone discovers my name on these business documents without my knowledge. No, no, no. It's not fraud if you're family. Her voice became desperate. Families help each other. This is what family does. Family doesn't commit identity theft. Don't call it that. Your father loves you. We both love you. We were trying to protect you from our financial stress. By destroying my financial future, we were going to fix it. Gerald promised me he would fix everything. Her voice became pleading. Armida, you have to help us now. If you press charges, your father will go to prison. Shane will lose his college funding. I'll lose the house. You should have thought about those consequences before you forged my signature on legal documents. Please, baby, please don't destroy our family over money. I didn't destroy anything, Mom. You and Dad destroyed it when you chose to steal from me instead of asking for help. We couldn't ask for help. You would have said no. You're right. I would have said no to co-signing a $37,000 business loan. I would have said no to a home equity line of credit. I would have said no to becoming a business partner in a failing company. My voice grew stronger. But I might have said yes to helping you find a financial counselor. I might have said yes to helping Shane apply for legitimate student loans. I might have said yes to family therapy. It's too late now. You're right, Mom, it is too late. After I hung up, I pulled up the business loan documents online. My signature was forged but skillfully. Someone had practiced copying my handwriting. The notarization was fake. The notary's commission had expired 2 years before the document was signed. Gerald had planned this systematically. This was not desperation or poor judgment. This was calculated financial fraud. My phone buzzed with a text from Shane. "Can we talk? I'm scared." Shane arrived at my apartment that evening wearing a $200 hoodie I had never seen before and designer sneakers that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. His hair was professionally styled and he smelled like expensive cologne. "Armida, I'm so sorry." Tears flowed down his cheeks as he collapsed onto my couch. "I had no idea what Dad was doing with your credit card." I sat across from him, studying his face. Shane had always been the family favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong. Patricia and Gerald spoiled him relentlessly. "Shane, those are expensive shoes." He glanced down at his feet, then back at me. "Mom bought these for me." "When?" "Last month, for my birthday." I pulled out my phone and showed him my credit card statement. "There's a charge at Nordstrom for $347 on your birthday. I never shopped at Nordstrom." His face crumpled. "Armida, I swear I didn't know." "What about the tuition payment? Did you know where that money came from?" "Dad said he got a business loan." "Did you ever wonder why my name is on the business paperwork as a partner when I've never set foot in Dad's office?" Shane's crying intensified. I was afraid to ask questions. Dad gets so angry when anyone questions him. I wanted to believe my little brother was innocent. I wanted to protect him the way I had when we were children, and Gerald's temper erupted into violence. But something felt wrong. "Shane, show me your social media." "What, why?" "Because I want to see where you've been eating and who you've been with." Reluctantly, he handed me his phone. I scrolled through Instagram photos from the past 6 months. Shane at expensive restaurants I recognized from my credit card statements. Shane at the country club Gerald had charged to my account. Shane posing with friends outside luxury stores. "Shane, you knew." "I didn't know it was your money." "But you knew it wasn't Dad's money. You knew he couldn't afford these restaurants and shopping trips." "I thought the business was doing better." Green Family Enterprises hasn't made a profit in 3 years. I looked up the tax records online. I kept scrolling through his photos. "You've been living off my credit cards while knowing I was excluded from family events." "That's not how it happened." "Then how did it happen?" Shane's demeanor shifted. The tears stopped. His voice became calculating. "Dad said if I kept quiet until after graduation, he would make sure you never found out. He said the business was going to get a big contract that would pay everything back." "So you chose to participate in fraud to protect Dad's reputation." "I chose to protect our family. You left us, Armida. You moved out and started your own life. You stopped caring about what happened to Mom and Dad." "I moved out because Gerald was financially and emotionally abusive. I started my own life because that's what healthy adults do." "You abandoned us." "I set boundaries." "Same thing." I stared at my little brother, realizing he was not the innocent victim I had imagined. He had actively participated in the fraud, enjoying the benefits, while I struggled to pay my own bills. "Shane, you're 20 years old. You're an adult. You made adult choices." "If you press charges against Dad, I'll kill myself." The words hit me like a physical blow. Shane had used suicide threats to manipulate Patricia since middle school. Whenever he faced consequences for poor behavior, he would threaten self-harm until the adults in his life gave him whatever he wanted. "Shane, that's manipulation." "I'm serious. If Dad goes to prison because of you, I'll end my life. I can't live with that guilt." The guilt should come from participating in identity theft, not from facing consequences for it. You're going to choose money over family. I'm going to choose honesty over corruption. Shane stood up abruptly. "Fine. When Dad's in prison and Mom loses the house and I'm dead, remember that you chose this. After he left, I called the suicide prevention hotline. The counselor explained that threats of self-harm are often manipulation tactics used by people who want to avoid accountability. She encouraged me to report the threats to mental health professionals, but not to change my decisions based on them. I realized my family had trained me to sacrifice my own well-being to manage their emotions. They had taught me that my role was to absorb their financial problems, their emotional instability, and their poor choices without complaint. That training stopped today. Marcus Williams from the Fraud Investigation Department called me the next morning. His voice was professional but warm with a slight southern accent that reminded me of my college roommate from Georgia. "Miss Green, I'm calling about the disputed charges on your account. I need to inform you that this case is more complex than initially reported." "More complex how?" "The fraudulent activity extends beyond your primary credit card. Someone has opened multiple accounts using your personal information." I sat down hard in my desk chair. "What kind of accounts?" "A business loan through Mountain West Credit Union for $37,000. 2 additional credit cards with Commerce Bank and First National. A home equity line of credit for $68,000 through Valley Mortgage." Marcus paused. "Miss Green, are you aware that your name appears as a business partner on Green Family Enterprises?" "I discovered that yesterday. I never signed those documents." "I'll need you to come into our office this week to provide handwriting samples and sworn statements. The forgeries are sophisticated. Whoever did this had access to your personal documents and plenty of time to practice copying your signature." "How much money are we talking about total?" "Current debt attributed to your name is approximately $73,000. The number hit me like a truck. $73,000. My annual salary was $45,000. It would take me years to pay off debt I never created." "Marcus, what happens if I can't prove the charges are fraudulent?" "You would be legally responsible for all debts. Your credit score would be destroyed. You could face wage garnishment or asset seizure. And if I can prove they're fraudulent, the accounts would be closed and removed from your credit report. However, we would need to pursue criminal charges against the perpetrator." "What kind of charges?" "Identity theft is a felony in California. Given the amount involved, we're looking at potential federal charges as well. The person responsible could face significant prison time." My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Please call me. We need to find a solution that doesn't destroy our family." "Marcus, there's something else you should know. The perpetrator is my father." Silence on the line. "I see, that does complicate matters. Are you willing to press charges against a family member?" "I don't know yet." "Miss Green, I need to be direct with you. Family fraud cases are among the most difficult to prosecute because victims often refuse to cooperate. If you're not willing to pursue criminal charges, the financial institutions will likely hold you responsible for the debt." Even though I never signed any documents or authorized any charges, proving you didn't authorize the charges requires showing that someone else committed fraud. If you won't identify the perpetrator or testify against them, the burden of proof becomes much harder to meet. So either I send my father to prison or I'm financially ruined. I'm afraid that's an accurate summary. Marcus scheduled an appointment for me to come to the bank the following day. After I hung up, I called in sick to work. I needed time to process the magnitude of this situation. Gerald had systematically destroyed my financial life while excluding me from family events. He had stolen my identity to save his failing business while telling everyone I was selfish and ungrateful. He had involved Shane and Patricia in the fraud, making them accomplices who now felt entitled to my silence. My phone rang, Patricia again. "Armida, I've been thinking all night. There has to be another way to handle this." "Like what, Mom?" "We could set up a payment plan. Gerald and I could pay you back over time. With what money you just told me yesterday that the business is failing and you're about to lose the house. We'll figure something out." "You'll figure something out by committing more fraud." "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant. You want me to absorb the consequences of Dad's crimes so you can continue living beyond your means. I want to keep our family together. Our family was never together, Mom. Our family was me paying for things while being excluded from enjoying them. That's not true. When was the last time I was included in a family vacation? Silence. When was the last time I was invited to family dinner without being asked to bring expensive food or pay for the meal? You always seem too busy. I was never asked. Your father thought you didn't want to spend time with us. Dad thought I didn't want to spend time with you, but he had no problem spending my money without asking. We raised you, we sacrificed for you. Raising your children is the legal obligation you accepted when you chose to have children. It doesn't give you the right to steal from those children when they become adults. I never thought of it as stealing. What would you call taking someone's identity and forging their signature on financial documents? Patricia hung up on me. I stared at my phone, feeling the weight of $73,000 in fraudulent debt pressing down on my chest like a concrete block. My family had constructed an elaborate scheme to use me as their personal bank while emotionally manipulating me to accept financial abuse as love. For the first time in years, I felt completely alone, but I also felt something else: determination. I was going to fight back. I met Patricia at Corner Cafe 3 days later, a small family-owned restaurant where we used to go for my birthday dinners when I was younger. She sat in the back booth, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug, looking older than I remembered. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her usually perfect hair hung limp and unwashed. "Thank you for coming," she said as I slid into the opposite seat. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm here because I still love you, Mom, despite everything that's happened." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too, sweetheart. That's why we need to find a way through this that doesn't destroy our family." I ordered black coffee from the waitress, keeping my voice steady. "Mom, I need you to tell me the complete truth about what happened. No more lies, no more manipulation, just the truth." "Your father was desperate, Armida. The business was failing and he was too proud to ask for help." "That doesn't explain why you helped him forge my signature." Patricia's demeanor shifted subtly. Her tears stopped and her voice became cooler, more calculated. "Armida, you need to understand something about family obligations." She leaned forward, her tone taking on the condescending quality I remembered from childhood arguments. "Your father and I invested 18 years of our lives raising you. We paid for your food, your clothing, your education, your medical care. We sacrificed our own dreams to give you opportunities. That was your choice as parents. And now it's your turn to give back. That's how families work." I stared at her, feeling like I was seeing Patricia clearly for the first time in my adult life. "Mom, are you saying I owe you the right to steal my identity?" "I'm saying you owe us loyalty and support. Your father needed financial help and you had good credit that wasn't being used." "My credit wasn't being used because I was being responsible with my finances." "Your credit wasn't being used because you're selfish." Patricia's mask slipped completely. "You moved out of our house the minute you turned 18. You got a job and kept all your money for yourself instead of helping your family. You live in that tiny apartment while your parents struggle to keep their home. I live in that apartment because it's what I can afford on my own salary. You could afford better if you didn't waste money on takeout food and streaming services." I realized Patricia had been monitoring my spending habits, probably through the fraudulent access to my accounts. "Mom, have you been tracking my purchases?" "I've been trying to understand where your priorities are. Do you know your father and I haven't eaten at a restaurant in 6 months, but you order Thai food twice a week? You've been eating at restaurants. I have the credit card charges to prove it." "Those were business meetings for your father's company." "Business meetings at Olive Garden and Red Lobster." Patricia's face flushed. "You wouldn't understand the pressure your father is under." "Help me understand. Explain to me how you justified photographing my driver's license and social security card." "We needed those documents to add you as a business partner. Your father thought if you had ownership in the company, you would be more invested in its success. By forging my signature on partnership documents, We were going to tell you eventually, when the business became profitable again. And if it never became profitable, Patricia shrugged, we would have figured something out. The casual dismissal of my financial security hit me like a slap across the face. Mom, do you understand that identity theft is a felony? It's not identity theft if it's family. Families share resources. Families share resources with consent. What you did was steal from me. Don't be so dramatic. $73,000 in debt under my name without my knowledge or permission. How is that dramatic? We were going to pay it back. With what money? Your father has some business deals in the works. The same business deals that have been in the works for the past 3 years, while his company lost money every quarter. Patricia's expression turned cold and vindictive. You know what your problem is, Armida. You've always thought you were better than your family. You went to college and got that fancy marketing job, and suddenly you were too good to help the people who made your success possible. I got student loans to pay for college. I worked 2 jobs to cover my expenses. Nobody in this family helped me succeed. We gave you a stable home environment. You gave me a home where Dad screamed at everyone when he was stressed, and you enabled his behavior by making excuses for him. Your father works hard to provide for this family by stealing from his own daughter, by doing whatever it takes to keep our family together. Patricia reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder. I've been gathering information about your financial habits and mental state over the past year. I have documentation of your erratic spending, your isolation from family events, your refusal to participate in important family discussions. What kind of documentation? Screenshots of your social media posts showing depression and anxiety, records of your therapy appointments. My blood turned to ice. How do you know about my therapy appointments? I called your insurance company pretending to be you. I told them I needed to verify my coverage for mental health services. That's insurance fraud. That's a mother concerned about her daughter's well-being. Mom, what are you planning to do with that information? If you pursue criminal charges against your father, I will present this evidence to demonstrate that you are mentally unstable and not a reliable witness. Patricia's voice became deadly serious. I will testify that you have been having paranoid delusions about being financially victimized. I will provide character witnesses who will confirm that you have been behaving erratically and making false accusations against family members. You would perjure yourself in court. I would protect my husband and son from a vindictive daughter who is having a mental breakdown. I stared at Patricia in complete shock. The woman who had raised me, who had taught me right from wrong, was threatening to destroy my reputation and credibility to cover up financial crimes. Mom, you planned all of this. Dad didn't force you to help him. You were the mastermind. I was a wife protecting her family. You were a criminal destroying your own daughter's future. Watch your tone with me, young lady, or what you'll steal more of my personal information. Patricia stood up from the booth, leaving money on the table for her coffee. You have 48 hours to drop this investigation and unlock your credit accounts. If you don't, I will make sure everyone in our family, our community, and your workplace knows that you are mentally ill and making false accusations against the people who love you most. After she left, I sat in the cafe for another hour processing the magnitude of what had just happened. Patricia was not Gerald's victim. She was his partner in crime, possibly the leader of their fraud scheme. She had been systematically gathering personal information about me for months, possibly years. She had planned to discredit me if I ever discovered their crimes. She had coached Gerald and Shane in maintaining their lies. My own mother was my greatest enemy. Monday morning at Davidson Marketing felt like walking through quicksand. Every step toward my cubicle required enormous effort. My supervisor, Rachel, intercepted me before I reached my desk. Armida, I need to see you in my office immediately. Rachel's office smelled like vanilla candles and stress sweat. She closed the door behind us and gestured for me to sit in the uncomfortable chair across from her desk. We need to discuss some irregularities that came up during your annual security clearance review. My stomach dropped. Davidson Marketing handled contracts for several government agencies, requiring all employees to maintain security clearances. I'd forgotten about the background check renewal. What kind of irregularities? The investigator found evidence of significant financial instability in your credit report, multiple accounts with high balances, a business partnership you didn't disclose during your initial hiring process, and a pending fraud investigation. Rachel, I'm the victim of identity theft. The fraud investigation is about crimes committed against me, not by me. I understand that's your position. However, the security office is concerned about your vulnerability to financial coercion or blackmail. Rachel pulled out a thick file folder. They're also concerned about discrepancies in your employment application. What discrepancies? You failed to disclose business ownership when you were hired. Green Family Enterprises lists you as a partner, but you indicated on your application that you had no business affiliations. Because I don't have business affiliations. Someone forged my signature on those partnership documents. Can you prove that? The bank is investigating the forgeries now. How long will that investigation take? I don't know, several weeks, maybe months. Rachel leaned back in her chair, her expression sympathetic but firm. Armida, I'm going to be direct with you. The Morrison account is worth $2.8 million to our agency. The client requires all team members to have active security clearances. If your clearance is suspended, I'll have to remove you from the project. That's my biggest account. It's 40% of my workload. I know, and your performance on Morrison has been excellent. That's why this situation is so frustrating. What do I need to do to keep my clearance? Provide documentation proving you're not responsible for the financial irregularities. Clear documentation showing the fraud investigation absolves you of any wrongdoing. And resolve the business partnership issue immediately. Rachel, I'm doing everything I can to resolve this. I believe you, but I also have business obligations. Rachel's voice became apologetic. I'm giving you 30 days to clear this up. If your security clearance isn't reinstated by then, I'll have to start looking for your replacement on the Morrison team. Walking back to my cubicle felt like a death march. My colleague Jennifer looked up from her computer as I passed. Rough meeting with Rachel. Just some administrative stuff. About the financial thing. I stopped walking. What financial thing? Oh, Jennifer's face reddened. I thought you knew people were talking. What are people saying? That you're having money problems. Someone mentioned seeing you arguing with debt collectors or something. Where did you hear that? I don't remember exactly. It's probably just office gossip. But I knew it was not just office gossip. Patricia had threatened to spread lies about my mental health and financial stability. She was already following through on that threat. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your coworkers are asking questions about your reliability. Wondered if you'd like to explain why you're accusing your family of crimes. I showed the message to Jennifer. Do you recognize this number? No, why? Someone is harassing me about the fraud case. Armida, what fraud case? I realized I had never told anyone at work about the identity theft. My colleagues were hearing rumors without context, probably from Patricia's campaign to discredit me. My parents stole my identity and racked up $73,000 in debt under my name. I'm working with the bank to resolve it. Jennifer's eyes widened. That's terrible. Are you okay? I'm handling it. Is that why your security clearance is being reviewed? Word traveled fast in our small office. By lunchtime, I overheard whispered conversations about my family drama and financial irresponsibility. Someone mentioned that employees with money problems sometimes resort to selling classified information. Rachel called me back into her office at 3 o'clock. Armida, I've received some concerning phone calls today. What kind of phone calls? A woman claiming to be your mother called to express concern about your mental health. She suggested that you've been making false accusations against family members and that we should be aware of your emotional instability. Rachel, that woman, is one of the people who committed fraud against me. She also mentioned that you've been in therapy for depression and anxiety, which you didn't disclose during your hiring process. Mental health treatment isn't something I'm required to disclose unless it affects my job performance. She's concerned it is affecting your job performance. She mentioned that you've been paranoid and delusional. She's lying to protect herself from criminal charges. I want to believe you, Armida, but I'm getting pressure from multiple directions. The security office is asking questions. Your mother sounds genuinely worried about your well-being, and your work quality has declined over the past few weeks. Because I'm dealing with a family crisis. I understand, but I need to ask, are you currently taking any medications that might affect your judgment or decision-making? I take prescription medication for anxiety, which is well managed and doesn't interfere with my work. Have you been having thoughts of harming yourself or others? Rachel, these questions are inappropriate and probably illegal. I'm asking because I care about you as an employee and as a person. The answers are no and no. I am not a danger to myself or others. I am not mentally unstable. I am the victim of financial crimes committed by people who are now trying to discredit me to avoid prosecution. Then you should have no problem providing documentation from your therapist confirming your mental stability. That's confidential medical information. It's also the only way I can reassure the security office that you're reliable. I stared at Rachel, realizing that Patricia's plan was working perfectly. She had planted seeds of doubt about my mental health and credibility. Those seeds were growing into concrete consequences that threatened my employment. I'll provide whatever documentation is legally required, I said finally. Good. And Armida, I strongly encourage you to resolve this family situation quickly and quietly. These kinds of personal problems can follow you throughout your career if they're not handled properly. Walking to my car that evening, I felt like my entire life was crumbling. Patricia had weaponized my mental health history against me. She was spreading lies to my colleagues. She was using my family relationships to isolate me professionally and personally. For the first time since this nightmare began, I considered giving up. Maybe it would be easier to accept financial responsibility for Gerald's crimes than to fight a battle that was destroying my career and reputation. Then I remembered the look in Patricia's eyes when she threatened me. Cold, calculating, predatory. If I gave up now, she would know that threats and manipulation worked. She would continue using those tactics against me and probably against other people. I was not going to let that happen. Attorney David Martinez had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and spoke with the patient tone of someone who had guided many clients through difficult family situations. His office walls displayed law degrees from Stanford and UCLA, along with photographs of him volunteering at legal aid clinics. Ms. Green, I've reviewed the documentation you provided. This is one of the most comprehensive family fraud cases I've encountered. Is that good or bad for me? It's good in terms of evidence. Your case is very strong. However, it's complicated by the family relationships involved. David pulled out a legal pad covered with handwritten notes. Let me explain your options and their likely consequences. I'm listening. Option 1, pursue criminal prosecution against your father, your mother, and potentially your brother. The evidence supports felony charges for identity theft, fraud, and forgery. Given the amount involved, they could face significant prison time. How significant? Your father could receive 5 to 10 years in federal prison. Your mother could receive 3 to 7 years. Your brother might receive probation and community service as a first-time offender, depending on the prosecutor's discretion. The numbers hit me like physical blows. 5 to 10 years. My father would be in his 70s when he got out of prison. What's option 2? Pursue civil recovery without criminal prosecution. Sue them in civil court for the $73,000 plus damages and legal fees. This would clear the debt from your credit report, but would not result in prison time. Which option do you recommend? That depends on your goals. Do you want justice or do you want to preserve family relationships? I want to stop them from doing this to other people. Then criminal prosecution is your only real option. Civil court sends a financial message. Criminal court sends a societal message. David opened another file folder. However, I need to make you aware of several challenges specific to family fraud cases. First, prosecutors sometimes hesitate to pursue these cases because juries can be sympathetic to defendants who claim they were helping family or didn't mean any harm. Even when they stole $73,000. Even then, second-year family members will likely hire attorneys who will argue that you consented to all charges and are now having buyer's remorse about family financial arrangements. But I never consented to anything. I believe you. But proving that in court requires us to demonstrate that the signatures are forged, that you never received any benefit from the stolen funds, and that your family members acted with criminal intent rather than misguided family loyalty. Don't the forged signatures prove criminal intent? They help, but your family's attorney will argue that your parents believed they had your permission to handle financial matters. They'll claim this was a family misunderstanding that got out of hand. What about my mother threatening to claim I'm mentally unstable? That actually strengthens your case. Threatening to provide false testimony is obstruction of justice, which is a separate felony. David leaned forward, his expression serious. Miss Green, I need to ask you some difficult questions about your readiness for this process. Okay. Are you prepared to testify against your parents in open court? The question made my chest tighten. I think so. Are you prepared for your family members to testify against you to claim you're lying mentally unstable or vindictive? I don't have a choice. Are you prepared for extended family members to choose sides, for some people to believe your parents' version of events rather than yours? That's already happening. Are you prepared for this process to take 6 months to 2 years to resolve, for your family relationships to be permanently damaged, for potential media attention if the case goes to trial? Media attention. Large-scale family fraud cases sometimes attract local news coverage. Your name and your family's names could be in newspaper articles and online reports. I felt overwhelmed by the scope of consequences I had not considered. David, what happens if I choose not to prosecute? You remain financially responsible for all fraudulent debt. Your credit score is destroyed. Your parents face no consequences and might continue committing fraud against you or other victims. Your security clearance problems continue, potentially ending your career. And if I do prosecute, the debt is removed from your credit report. Your family members face appropriate consequences for their crimes. You send a message that financial abuse is not acceptable, but your family relationships are probably destroyed forever. It sounds like I lose either way. You lose different things in different ways. The question is what kind of loss you can live with. David handed me a business card for a therapist who specialized in helping crime victims navigate family relationships. I recommend talking to Dr. Sarah Chen before making your final decision. She can help you process the emotional aspects of this situation. How much will prosecution cost me? If the prosecutor's office handles the criminal case, there's no cost to you. If you also pursue civil recovery, my fees would be approximately $15,000, but we could potentially recover those costs from your family's assets. What assets? Their house, their cars, business equipment, personal property. If they're convicted of felony fraud, the court can order restitution and asset forfeiture. They could lose their house. Yes. I imagined Patricia, homeless Gerald in prison, Shane's college education interrupted by family scandal. Then I imagined myself working 3 jobs to pay off debt I never created, while they face no consequences for destroying my financial future. David, I need time to think about this. Of course, but don't take too long. Statutes of limitations apply to some of these charges. The sooner we act, the stronger our case becomes. Walking to my car, I felt the weight of an impossible decision. Prosecuting my family meant potentially destroying their lives. Not prosecuting them meant they destroyed mine instead. For the first time in my adult life, I understood what true justice meant. It was not about revenge or punishment. It was about consequences and accountability. It was about choosing between enabling abuse and stopping abuse. My Aunt Carol called that evening, her voice sharp with accusation and disbelief. "Armida Rose Green, what in God's name do you think you're doing to your parents?" I had been expecting this call. Carol was Patricia's older sister, the self-appointed family matriarch who believed family loyalty trumped all other considerations. "Aunt Carol, what did Mom tell you?" "She told me you've lost your mind and are trying to send your father to prison over some misunderstanding about credit cards." "It's not a misunderstanding. Dad and Mom stole my identity and accumulated $73,000 in debt under my name." "That's impossible. Gerald would never steal from his own daughter." "I have bank statements and forged documents proving otherwise." "You have paperwork that you're misinterpreting because you're having some kind of mental breakdown." The accusation stung, but I kept my voice steady. "Aunt Carol, did Mom tell you that she threatened to lie about my mental health if I pursue criminal charges?" "Patricia told me she's concerned about your well-being. She said you've been acting paranoid and making wild accusations against people who love you. She's lying to protect herself from prosecution." "Listen to yourself, Armida. You sound like a crazy person. Your parents devoted their lives to raising you and your brother. The idea that they would commit crimes against you is absolutely ridiculous." "Why is it ridiculous?" "Because they're your parents. Parents don't steal from their own children." "Actually, family fraud is more common than stranger fraud because family members have access to personal information." "Stop talking like a lawyer and start thinking like a daughter." "I am thinking like a daughter. I'm thinking about how my parents betrayed my trust and destroyed my financial security." Carol's voice became more aggressive. "Your parents are good people going through a tough time. Instead of helping them, you're making their lives harder. How am I supposed to help them?" "By dropping this ridiculous fraud claim and working together as a family to solve the problem. The problem is that they committed multiple felonies. The problem is that you've become selfish and vindictive." Before I could respond, Carol hung up. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. "Uncle Frank." "Armida, I just got off the phone with your Aunt Carol. This family drama needs to stop immediately." "Uncle Frank, it's not drama, it's crime. It's a family financial dispute that you're blowing out of proportion." "A family financial dispute would involve people disagreeing about money they all knew about. This involves forged signatures and stolen identity." "Gerald made some mistakes. That doesn't mean you need to destroy him." "Gerald didn't make mistakes. He planned and executed systematic fraud over multiple years. Even if that's true, sending your own father to prison is wrong. Letting him get away with felony theft is wrong. Family forgives family. Family doesn't commit identity theft against family." "You're being selfish." "I'm being victimized." Frank's voice became threatening. "If you pursue this nonsense, you're going to find yourself very alone in this world. Your family won't forgive you for destroying Gerald and Patricia. Your cousins won't want anything to do with you. You'll be cut off from everyone who ever cared about you. If you all side with criminals against victims, then maybe I don't want your relationships. You'll regret that attitude when you're old and alone with no family support system." After Frank hung up, I realized Patricia had been busy spreading her version of events to every family member who would listen. She was mobilizing collective pressure to force me into silence. My phone buzzed with text messages throughout the evening. "Cousin Beth, your parents are devastated. How could you do this to them?" "Cousin Mark, whatever happened, family should stick together. Work it out privately." "Aunt Susan, Patricia is having chest pains from stress. Do you want to give your mother a heart attack?" "Uncle Robert, Gerald has always been good to you. Show some gratitude." My grandmother Rose called at 9 o'clock, her voice weak and disappointed. "Armida, dear, I'm very concerned about what's happening with your parents." "Grandma, what did they tell you?" Patricia called crying, saying you're accusing them of stealing from you. She's very worried about your mental health. Grandma, they did steal from me. I have proof. Sweetheart families sometimes share money in ways that younger people don't understand. When I was your age, my parents handled my finances until I got married. This is different. They forged my signature on legal documents. Are you sure you didn't sign some papers and then forget about them? Grandma, I would remember signing partnership documents for Dad's business. Patricia said you've been under a lot of stress at work. Sometimes stress can affect our memory. My memory is fine. Rose's voice became sad and pleading. Armida, I'm 87 years old. I don't have many years left with this family. Please don't spend what time I have left fighting with your parents over money. Grandma, it's not about money. It's about trust and honesty. It's about family, and family is more important than money. Even when family steals from family, especially then, that's when family needs to forgive and move forward. After she hung up, I sat on my apartment floor feeling completely isolated. Every family member believed Patricia's lies or prioritized family unity over justice. They were all pressuring me to accept financial abuse to preserve family harmony. My phone rang one more time. Shane. Armida, everyone is really mad at you. I figured that out. Grandma Rose had chest pains after talking to you. Mom took her to the emergency room. Is she okay? She's fine now, but Mom says the stress of this situation could kill her. Mom is using Grandma's health to manipulate me. Or maybe you're really causing serious stress for an elderly woman. Shane, whose side are you on? I'm on the side of keeping our family together. Our family was never together. Our family was built on lies, manipulation, and financial abuse. That's not true. It is true. Dad stole from me while excluding me from family events. Mom threatened to lie about my mental health to cover up their crimes. You participated in fraud and then threatened suicide when I discovered it. We're still family. No, Shane. We're people who share DNA. Family requires love, trust, and respect. We've never had any of those things. If you send Dad to prison and Mom to prison and destroy Grandma's health, you'll have nothing left. I'll have my integrity. I'll have my self-respect. I'll have a future that's not built on enabling abuse. You'll be alone. I'm already alone. I've been alone for years while thinking I had family support that was never actually there. Shane's voice became quiet. Armida, is there anything I can do to change your mind? You can tell the truth about what you knew and when you knew it. You can stop manipulating me with suicide threats. You can acknowledge that what our parents did was wrong. I can't do that. Then we have nothing more to talk about. After Shane hung up, I turned off my phone and sat in silence. My entire extended family had chosen to support criminals rather than victims. They had chosen comfortable lies over difficult truths. But I had made my choice too. I was choosing justice over family loyalty. I was choosing my own well-being over their comfort. It was the hardest decision I had ever made. It was also the right decision. Marcus Williams called me the next morning with news that changed everything. Miss Green, the investigation has expanded significantly. Your father's fraudulent activities extend beyond your case. What do you mean? We've identified 3 additional victims of identity theft perpetrated by Gerald Green. All the cases follow the same pattern: forged signatures, stolen personal information, and systematic financial abuse. My hands started shaking. Who are the other victims? Elderly neighbor, Mrs. Eleanor Thompson, business partner, Luis Gonzalez, and your mother's sister, Diane Foster. Aunt Diane, but she's on Dad's side in all this. Mrs. Foster may not be aware of the full extent of the fraud yet. Our investigation shows that Gerald opened credit cards and took out a personal loan using her information. The total theft from her accounts is approximately $22,000. And Mrs. Thompson lost her retirement savings, $48,000 from a certificate of deposit that was cashed out using forged documentation. She thought the bank made an error and has been fighting to recover the funds for 8 months. What about Luis? Mr. Gonzalez is Gerald's business partner in Green Family Enterprises. Gerald has been systematically stealing from business accounts and attributing the missing funds to poor bookkeeping. Mr. Gonzalez discovered the theft during a routine audit last month. I felt sick to my stomach. Gerald was not a desperate father making poor decisions. He was a serial criminal, targeting vulnerable people. Marcus, why didn't these other cases come to light before now? Mrs. Thompson is 82 years old. She assumed the missing money was a banking error and didn't think to check for identity theft. Mr. Gonzalez suspected internal theft, but didn't realize the scope until our investigation connected his case to yours. And Mrs. Foster hasn't been monitoring her credit reports regularly. How did Dad access their personal information? Mrs. Thompson hired Green Family Enterprises to do her landscaping. Gerald had access to her home while she was at medical appointments. He photographed documents in her home office. Mr. Gonzalez trusted Gerald with business paperwork that included copies of personal identification. Mrs. Foster gave Gerald her social security number years ago for some insurance paperwork. So he's been planning this for years. The earliest fraudulent activity we can trace dates back 4 years. This is not desperation or poor judgment. This is systematic criminal enterprise. What happens now? The FBI is taking over the case because of the multi-victim scope and the amount involved. Agent Jennifer Walsh from the White Collar Crime Unit will be contacting you later today. Is there anything else I should know? Gerald appears to be preparing to flee. We've detected attempts to liquidate assets and transfer funds to offshore accounts. He's trying to leave the country. Possibly. We've alerted airport security and border patrol, but if he's successful in transferring funds overseas, recovery becomes much more difficult. After Marcus hung up, I called attorney David Martinez immediately. David, the FBI, is taking over the case. Gerald has been stealing from multiple people. How many people? At least 4 victims that we know of. Total theft is probably close to $150,000. Miss Green, this changes everything. Your family was not struggling financially. Gerald was running a sophisticated fraud operation. What does that mean for prosecution? It means Gerald faces federal charges with mandatory minimum sentences. There's no possibility of family court mediation or reduced charges. He's looking at potential decades in prison. What about Mom and Shane? If your mother was aware of the other victims, she could face conspiracy charges. If Shane was only involved in your case, he might still receive probation. I need to talk to the other victims. I think that's wise. You'll probably find that your family's manipulation tactics were used against them as well. David connected me with Mrs. Thompson's attorney. Within an hour, I was sitting in Eleanor Thompson's living room, listening to a story that mirrored my own experience. Gerald seemed like such a nice young man. Mrs. Thompson said, her voice shaky but determined. He always asked about my health, my family. He even helped me carry groceries from my car. When did you first notice money missing from your accounts? Last January, I went to renew my certificate of deposit and the bank told me it had been cashed out in November. I never authorized that transaction. What did you do? I kept calling the bank thinking they made a mistake. They kept telling me the signature matched their records and that I had provided proper identification. Did you suspect Gerald? Not until last week when the FBI agent showed me security footage of Gerald at my bank using a fake driver's license with my information. Mrs. Thompson pulled out a manila folder full of bank statements and correspondence. I lost my entire retirement savings, dear. $48,000 I had been saving for 30 years. I can't afford my medical bills now. I had to sell my late husband's car to pay for groceries. Mrs. Thompson, I'm so sorry. What breaks my heart is that I trusted him. I invited him into my home. I offered him lemonade while he worked in my garden. Her eyes filled with tears. He sat at my kitchen table and listened to me talk about my late husband while he was planning to steal everything I had left. Were there any warning signs? He asked a lot of questions about my finances, where I banked, whether I had retirement accounts, whether any family members helped me with money management. I thought he was just making conversation. Did he ever mention me? He talked about his daughter who worked in marketing. He said you were very successful but had become distant from the family. Mrs. Thompson looked embarrassed. I'm afraid I believed him when he said you had become selfish and ungrateful. That's exactly what he told my extended family about me. Gerald is very convincing when he wants to be, very charming, very sympathetic. If I hadn't seen the bank security footage, I might still believe his lies. What convinced you to press charges? My son Jake. He's a prosecutor, and he explained that people like Gerald don't stop until they're forced to stop. He said if I didn't pursue justice, Gerald would find other elderly victims to target. Are you worried about the trial process? Terrified, but I can't let him do this to other people. Mrs. Thompson walked me to the door, her steps careful and measured. Dear, I want you to know that what Gerald did to you is not your fault. Family members who betray trust are the worst kind of criminals because they use love as a weapon. Thank you for saying that. Your father counted on your loyalty to protect him from consequences. Don't let him use your love against you. Driving home from Mrs. Thompson's house, I felt a new sense of clarity. Gerald was not a flawed father making desperate choices. He was a predator who systematically targeted vulnerable people, including his own daughter. Patricia was not a victim caught between competing loyalties. She was an accomplice who enabled and participated in crimes against multiple people. Shane was not an innocent bystander. He was a beneficiary who enjoyed the proceeds of theft while knowing those proceeds were stolen. My family had not made mistakes. They had chosen to commit crimes. And I was going to make sure they faced appropriate consequences. Shane called me 3 days later, his voice urgent and breathless with panic. Armida, you need to get to the hospital immediately. Dad had a heart attack. My blood turned cold. Despite everything Gerald had done, he was still my father. What hospital? How bad is it? Mercy General. He's stable now, but he's asking for you. The doctor said he might need emergency surgery, and Dad wants to apologize before anything happens. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I drove to Mercy General with my hands gripping the steering wheel, my mind racing between anger and concern. Gerald had destroyed my financial life, but I could not ignore a genuine medical emergency. Family relationships were complicated even when family members committed crimes. Shane met me in the hospital lobby, his eyes red with tears. Thank God you came. Dad's been asking for you constantly since they brought him in. What happened? He was at the office when he started having chest pains. Luis called 911. Shane led me toward the elevators. Armida. I think the stress of this whole situation triggered the heart attack. Shane Dad's heart attack was not caused by me pursuing criminal charges. It was caused by years of unhealthy lifestyle choices and the stress of maintaining elaborate lies. He just wants to make things right. We rode the elevator to the cardiac unit in silence. Shane led me down a hallway to a conference room instead of a patient room. Why are we going here instead of to Dad's room? The family is gathered to discuss Dad's condition and figure out how to move forward. Something felt wrong. Shane's demeanor was too calm for someone whose father had just suffered a heart attack. His tears had dried up completely, and his voice carried no trace of genuine distress. I opened the conference room door to find Gerald sitting upright in a chair, very much alive and apparently healthy. Patricia sat beside him, along with Aunt Carol, Uncle Frank, and a woman I did not recognize wearing professional attire. Surprise, Gerald said with a smug smile. No heart attack, but we do need to talk. I turned to leave immediately, but Shane blocked the doorway. Armida, please just listen. This is Dr. Amanda Foster. She's a family counselor who specializes in helping families resolve financial disputes. Dr. Foster stood up, extending her hand toward me. Miss Green, your family has asked me to mediate a discussion about the misunderstandings that have developed around some financial arrangements. There are no misunderstandings. There are crimes. Please sit down. Let's talk through this calmly and rationally. I'm leaving. Shane stepped aside, but Gerald's voice stopped me. If you walk out that door, I'll make sure every person in your professional and personal life knows you're having a complete mental breakdown. I turned around slowly. You're threatening me in front of a witness. I'm offering you a chance to get the help you clearly need. Dr. Foster looked uncomfortable. Mr. Green, that's not how I describe this intervention process to you. Gerald ignored her. Armida, sit down so Dr. Foster can explain how mental illness can cause people to misinterpret family financial arrangements. Dr. Foster, did my family tell you they hired you under false pretenses? I was told you were having difficulty processing some family financial decisions and that you had been making accusations that concerned your relatives. They told you I was mentally ill. They expressed concern about your emotional well-being. I pulled out my phone and showed Dr. Foster the bank fraud documentation Marcus Williams had provided. These are federal criminal charges for identity theft, forgery, and fraud. This is not a family financial misunderstanding. Dr. Foster studied the documents, her expression changing from neutral professionalism to obvious concern. Mr. Green, these appear to be serious criminal allegations. They're delusions caused by work stress and depression, Patricia interjected. Armida has been in therapy for mental health issues. Mrs. Green, therapy for depression does not cause people to hallucinate FBI investigations. Gerald's mask slipped. Listen, lady, we're paying you to help our daughter accept reality, not to validate her paranoid fantasies. Sir, I was not hired to declare anyone mentally incompetent. I was hired to facilitate family communication. Then facilitate her understanding that she owes this family loyalty and support. Dr. Foster closed her notepad and stood up. I'm ending this session immediately. Mr. and Mrs. Green, you misrepresented the nature of this situation to me. Miss Green, these financial documents appear legitimate, and I recommend you continue pursuing appropriate legal remedies. You can't leave, Aunt Carol protested. We paid you for a full session. You paid me under false pretenses. I don't participate in manipulating therapy practices to gaslight crime victims. After Dr. Foster left, Gerald's friendly demeanor disappeared completely. You think you're so smart, don't you? Bringing in FBI agents, hiring lawyers, making us look like criminals? You are criminals. We're your family. We gave you life. You destroyed my financial life. And now I'm going to destroy your reputation. Gerald pulled out his phone. I have contacts at your workplace, at your bank, in your apartment complex. By tomorrow, everyone will know you're mentally unstable and making false accusations against people who love you. Go ahead. The FBI will add harassment and obstruction of justice to your charges. The FBI won't believe a word you say once I'm done spreading the truth about your mental health history. Patricia joined in. We have documentation of your therapy sessions, your prescription medications, your social media posts about depression and anxiety. Documentation you obtained through insurance fraud. Documentation that proves you're not a reliable witness. Shane stepped closer to me, his voice pleading. Armida, just admit you misunderstood some financial arrangements. Admit Dad had your permission to use your credit cards. This whole thing can disappear. I won't lie to cover up crimes. Then you'll lose everything, Gerald said. Your job, your reputation, your family, your future. Is that really worth some money? It's worth my integrity. Your integrity won't pay your bills when you're unemployed and blacklisted. I looked around the room at these people who shared my DNA, but had no concept of honesty, accountability, or genuine love. They were willing to destroy my mental health, my career, and my future to avoid consequences for their criminal choices. You're right about one thing, Gerald. This will determine who loses everything, but it won't be me. I walked out of the conference room, ignoring Shane's attempts to follow me. In the hospital parking lot, I called FBI agent Jennifer Walsh and reported the attempted intimidation. Miss Green, we've been expecting this kind of escalation. Your family members are realizing they face serious federal charges, and desperate people often resort to desperate tactics. Can you do anything to stop the harassment? We're already monitoring their communications and financial activities. Any attempts to intimidate witnesses or obstruct justice will result in additional charges. What should I do if they continue threatening me? Document everything and report it immediately. Keep copies of all communications. And Miss Green, don't let them scare you into dropping this case. What they did was wrong, and they need to face appropriate consequences. Driving home, I felt a strange sense of relief. The intervention attempt had shown me that my family was willing to use any manipulation tactic to avoid accountability. They had crossed every ethical line to protect themselves while trying to destroy me. But they had also revealed their desperation. They were scared. They knew they were guilty, and they knew their lies were falling apart. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was winning. FBI agent Jennifer Walsh arranged a meeting between me and the other fraud victims at the federal building downtown. Walking into the government building felt surreal. 6 months ago, I was a quiet marketing professional who had never been inside a law enforcement facility. Now I was the key witness in a federal criminal investigation. Eleanor Thompson sat in the conference room with a man in his 40s who introduced himself as her son, Jake, a prosecutor with the district attorney's office. Across from them sat Luis Gonzalez Gerald's former business partner with his attorney Maria Santos. At the head of the table sat Agent Walsh, surrounded by case files and evidence folders. "Thank you all for coming," Agent Walsh began. "We're here to coordinate our investigation and ensure we have comprehensive evidence for prosecution." Jake Thompson spoke first. "Agent Walsh, my mother and I have been documenting Gerald's activities independently. We have security camera footage from her bank showing Gerald using fake identification to access her accounts." "What kind of footage?" I asked. Eleanor opened a laptop and showed us video from her bank's security cameras. Gerald, clearly recognizable, presented identification and signed paperwork at the teller window. The timestamp showed dates when Eleanor was in physical therapy appointments 60 miles away from the bank. "He's using a fake driver's license with my information," Eleanor explained. The bank teller later identified him from a photo lineup. Luis leaned forward. "I've been tracking missing funds from our business accounts for 8 months. Gerald has been writing checks to himself and forging my signature on withdrawal slips." "How much money?" Agent Walsh asked. $32,000 from business operating accounts. He also took out a line of credit against business equipment without my knowledge or consent. Maria Santos Luis's attorney pulled out financial records. "We've discovered that Gerald has been operating Green Family Enterprises as a front for money laundering. He deposits stolen funds into business accounts, then transfers them to personal accounts as salary or profit sharing." Money laundering. I felt overwhelmed. How is this connected to identity theft? Gerald steals money through identity theft, then uses the business to make the stolen funds appear legitimate, Agent Walsh explained. "It's a sophisticated operation that requires planning and financial knowledge." Jake pulled out another folder. "There's more. We've been investigating Gerald's associates and discovered he's been working with a document forger named Kevin Murphy. Murphy specializes in fake identification and forged signatures for financial fraud. Gerald didn't forge my signatures himself. He hired a professional forger. That's why the signatures are so convincing." Agent Walsh opened her case file. "We've been tracking Kevin Murphy for 2 years. He's connected to fraud rings operating throughout California. Gerald's case is helping us build a larger racketeering investigation." Racketeering? Luis looked shocked. "I thought Gerald was just stealing to save his failing business." Gerald's landscaping business has been losing money for years, but his personal spending has increased dramatically. He's been living off fraud proceeds while maintaining the appearance of business success. Eleanor pulled out bank statements. "Agent Walsh, I've been reviewing my financial records going back 5 years. I think Gerald has been stealing from me longer than we initially discovered." "What did you find?" "Small withdrawals from my checking account. $20 here, $50 there. Amounts I assumed were bank fees or forgotten transactions." How much total? Approximately $3,000 over 4 years. Agent Walsh made notes in her file. Gerald probably started with small thefts to test whether you would notice. When you didn't report the missing money, he escalated to larger amounts. I felt sick to my stomach. He was experimenting on victims to perfect his technique. That's a common pattern in serial fraud cases. The perpetrator starts small and gradually increases the scope of their crimes. Luis shared his own timeline. Gerald became my business partner 3 years ago. The first year, everything seemed normal. The second year, I noticed some bookkeeping irregularities. This year, I realized thousands of dollars were missing. Did he give you explanations for the missing money? He blamed poor record keeping, unexpected expenses, slow paying customers. He always had reasonable explanations. Jake pulled out a legal pad covered with handwritten notes. I've been building a timeline of Gerald's activities. The pattern suggests he's been running this fraud operation for at least 5 years. 5 years? I was stunned. He probably started by stealing from elderly clients during landscaping jobs, small amounts that wouldn't be noticed immediately. Then he graduated to identity theft when he realized how much money he could steal without detection. Agent Walsh turned to me. Miss Green, your case is probably the most sophisticated because Gerald had long-term access to your personal information. He could forge documents more convincingly and cover his tracks more effectively. Why didn't he steal smaller amounts from me? Because you're family. He knew you would eventually discover large-scale theft, so he planned to blame family financial arrangements rather than outright theft. Maria Santos leaned forward. Agent Walsh, what are we looking at for prosecution? Gerald faces federal charges for wire fraud, mail fraud identity theft, money laundering, and racketeering. If convicted on all counts, he could receive 25 to 30 years in federal prison. What about Patricia and Shane? Patricia faces charges for conspiracy mail fraud and obstruction of justice. Shane faces charges for fraud and conspiracy, but as a first-time offender, he'll likely receive probation and restitution requirements. Eleanor looked concerned. What kind of trial are we looking at? Federal court probably 6 months to a year from now. Each of you will need to testify about your experiences and the impact of Gerald's crimes. Will our identities be public? Yes, federal court proceedings are public record. However, we can request that certain personal information be redacted from public documents. Luis asked the question we were all thinking. What are the chances Gerald will be convicted? With the evidence, we have conviction is almost certain. The challenge is recovering your stolen funds. What do you mean? Gerald has been transferring money to offshore accounts. We're working with international law enforcement to trace and recover stolen funds, but that process can take years. Jake pulled out his business card. I'd like to propose something. My mother and I have been working with a private investigator named Sarah Chen. She's been tracking Gerald's activities and assets. If we coordinate our efforts, we might be able to locate hidden assets for recovery purposes. What kind of investigator? I asked. Financial crimes specialist. She used to work for the FBI before starting her own practice. Agent Walsh nodded. I know Sarah Chen. She's excellent and her information has been helpful in our investigation. Would she work with all of us? Luis asked. I think so. The more information she has, the better she can track Gerald's money trail. Eleanor looked determined. I want to recover every penny that man stole from me, and I want to make sure he can never do this to anyone else. That's exactly what we're going to do, Agent Walsh said. Gerald Green picked the wrong victims. You're all intelligent, determined people with strong support systems. He probably expected you to be too embarrassed or confused to fight back. He was wrong, I said. Very wrong, and that's going to be his downfall. Walking out of the federal building, I felt something I had not felt in months' hope. I was not alone in this fight. I had allies who understood what Gerald had done and who were committed to seeking justice. Gerald had spent years building his fraud operation, but we were going to tear it down piece by piece. And we were going to make sure he faced appropriate consequences for every crime he had committed. Gerald called me 2 days later, his voice unnaturally calm and controlled. Armida, we need to meet and discuss this situation like adults. I have nothing to discuss with you. I think you do. I've been gathering some interesting information about your role in this whole mess. My role? Meet me at Denny's on Maple Street in 1 hour. Come alone. Gerald, anything you want to say to me, you can say in front of my attorney. You can bring David Martinez if you want, but you're going to want to hear what I have to say before you make any more accusations against your family. I called David immediately. Gerald wants to meet. He says he has information about my role in this situation. Don't meet with him alone. If you're going to meet with him at all, we should record the conversation. Can we do that legally? California is a 2-party consent state, but if we inform him the conversation is being recorded, it's legal. Will he agree to be recorded? He will if he's confident in whatever evidence he thinks he has. An hour later, David and I sat across from Gerald at a booth in Denny's restaurant. Gerald looked haggard and older than his 58 years. His hair was unwashed, his clothes wrinkled, and his hands shook slightly as he ordered coffee. Before we start, David said, I'm recording this conversation with everyone's consent. Gerald shrugged. Fine, I want everything documented. Gerald, what did you want to tell me? I asked. I want to show you proof that you orchestrated this entire fraud scheme. My stomach dropped. What? Gerald pulled out a manila folder and spread documents across the table. Bank statements, credit card applications, business partnership papers. These documents prove that you authorized all charges to your credit cards and that you received cash payments for your cooperation. David picked up one of the documents. This appears to be a receipt for a cash withdrawal from Miss Green's credit card account. Exactly, $3,000 in cash withdrawn by Armida on March 15th. Gerald, I never withdrew cash from my credit card. Your signature is on the withdrawal slip. David studied the document. This signature does appear to match Miss Green's handwriting. My hands started shaking. David, I never signed that document. Gerald smiled smugly. There are 12 more withdrawal slips with your signature Armida, all for cash amounts between $1,000 and $5,000. The total cash you withdrew from your own credit cards is $38,000. That's impossible. Bank security cameras show you at the teller window for each transaction. I want to see that security footage. You can see it during the trial when my attorney presents it as evidence that you were a willing participant in the family financial arrangements. David was studying the documents carefully. Mr. Green, these withdrawal slips show dates and times when Miss Green was at work. Her employer can provide documentation proving she was in meetings during these bank visits. Her employer will also testify about her declining work performance and her financial stress. They'll confirm that she needed money and was willing to do anything to get it, including defrauding herself, including lying about the source of the money she stole. I stared at Gerald in complete disbelief. You're claiming I stole money from myself? I'm claiming you participated in a scheme to embezzle funds from Green Family Enterprises and then tried to cover your tracks by claiming you were a victim of identity theft. That doesn't make any sense. It makes perfect sense. You were listed as a business partner. You had access to business accounts. You withdrew money from business credit cards and kept the cash for yourself. When Luis discovered the missing funds and threatened an audit, you panicked and claimed you never authorized the credit card usage. David leaned forward. Mr. Green, you're alleging that your daughter stole money from a business she didn't know existed, using credit cards she didn't know about. I'm alleging that my daughter is a liar and a thief who got caught and is now trying to blame her family for her own crimes. Gerald, this is insane. What's insane is you thinking you could steal $38,000 and get away with it. David gathered the documents Gerald had spread across the table. Mr. Green, I'll need to have these documents examined by handwriting experts and forensic accountants. Go ahead. You'll find that every signature is authentic and that every transaction was authorized by Armida. and the forged signatures on the business partnership documents. Those are also authentic. Armida signed those papers in my office 18 months ago. I have never been to your office. My security cameras will prove otherwise. David stood up from the booth. Mr. Green, this meeting is over. Any further communication should go through attorneys. Wait, Gerald called out as we prepared to leave. Armida, I want you to know that I never intended for things to go this far. What things? The family financial arrangements. They were supposed to be temporary. Gerald, you stole $73,000 from me. I borrowed $73,000 from family business accounts that you had access to as a partner. I was never a business partner. The state of California says you are. The bank records say you are. The security footage says you are. The forged documents say I am. Nothing was forged, Armida. You signed every document, authorized every transaction, and withdrew $38,000 in cash. The only fraud here is you lying about your participation after you got scared about the FBI investigation. Walking to our car, David looked deeply concerned. Armida Gerald has obviously spent considerable time and money creating false evidence. How could he forge security camera footage? Professional document forgery services often include fake video evidence. It's expensive, but it's available. So he's claiming I stole money from myself and then reported myself to the FBI. That's exactly what he's claiming. It's a desperate defense strategy, but it might create reasonable doubt if the fake evidence is convincing. David, what do we do now? We have those documents examined by experts immediately. We get your employment records to prove you were at work during the alleged bank visits, and we find out who helped Gerald create this false evidence. How long will that take? Several weeks, maybe months. What happens if Gerald's fake evidence is convincing enough to create doubt about my testimony? Then this case becomes much more complicated to prosecute. That evening, I called Agent Jennifer Walsh and reported Gerald's attempted intimidation and false evidence. Miss Green, we've been expecting this. Gerald has hired a very expensive attorney who specializes in defending financial fraud cases. Can fake evidence really create reasonable doubt? If it's sophisticated enough, yes, but we have our own forensic experts who can detect fake documents and altered video footage. How confident are you that Gerald's evidence is fake? Very confident, but we'll need to prove it convincingly to a jury. Agent Walsh, what if Gerald succeeds in making me look like the real criminal? Then he walks free and you potentially face charges for false reporting. So he's trying to destroy me completely. He's trying to save himself by destroying you, but we're not going to let that happen. How can you be sure? Because we have evidence of his other crimes against Mrs. Thompson, Luis Gonzalez, and potentially dozens of other victims. Even if he creates doubt about your case, he still faces multiple federal charges. But my reputation and my life would be ruined. Not if we expose his fake evidence and prove he's a serial fraudster who targets his own family members. Agent Walsh, I'm scared. I understand. But remember, you're not alone in this fight. You have allies, you have evidence, and you have the truth on your side. I hope that's enough. It will be. Gerald Green made a critical mistake when he targeted you. He picked a victim who was smart enough, strong enough, and determined enough to fight back. He picked the wrong daughter. Exactly, and that's going to be his downfall. The phone call came from Aunt Carol at 6 o'clock in the morning, her voice high-pitched with panic and disbelief. Armida, the FBI raided your parents' house last night. Gerald was arrested. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. What happened? Agents showed up with a search warrant at 11 o'clock. They took boxes of documents, computers, Gerald's cell phone, everything. The neighbors were all watching. It was humiliating. Where is Gerald now? He's in federal custody. Patricia is at my house crying hysterically. She keeps saying this is all your fault. Aunt Carol Gerald brought this on himself by committing federal crimes. He's your father, Armida. How could you do this to him? I didn't do anything to him. The FBI did their job based on evidence of his criminal activities. Patricia says you planted evidence and lied to investigators. Patricia participated in the crimes. She's trying to avoid taking responsibility. She's devastated. Her husband is in jail, her reputation is ruined, and her daughter has turned against the family. Her daughter was victimized by the family. You've destroyed everything we built together. After Carol hung up, I called Agent Walsh immediately. Agent Walsh, my aunt says Gerald was arrested last night. That's correct. We arrested Gerald Green, Patricia Green, and Kevin Murphy, the document forger. We also executed search warrants on their homes and Gerald's business office. What did you find? Extensive evidence of fraud forgery equipment, fake identification documents, and financial records showing the scope of their criminal enterprise. Is Patricia really being charged? Mrs. Green faces federal charges for conspiracy mail fraud, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. The evidence shows she was not just an unwilling accomplice. She was an active participant who recruited victims and helped cover up crimes. What about Shane? Your brother is cooperating with our investigation. He's providing testimony about his parents' activities in exchange for reduced charges. Reduced charges. Probation, community service, and restitution payments. No jail time if he testifies truthfully. How do you feel about his cooperation? It strengthens our case considerably. Shane has detailed knowledge about how your parents targeted victims and concealed their crimes. Agent Walsh, what happens next? Arraignment hearings next week. Gerald and Patricia will probably be denied bail because they're flight risks. The trial will likely be scheduled for 6 to 8 months from now. Will they be in jail until then? If bail is denied, yes. An hour later, Shane called me, his voice broken and exhausted. Armida, I need to talk to you. About what? About everything. About what really happened, what I knew, and what I'm going to testify about. Shane, you should be talking to your attorney, not to me. I fired my attorney. I hired a new one who specializes in cooperating witness cases. Why? Because I can't keep lying. The FBI has too much evidence. If I keep trying to protect Mom and Dad, I'll go to prison too. What are you going to testify about? Everything. How Dad taught me to use your credit card information. How Mom collected your personal documents. How they planned to blame you if anyone discovered the fraud. They planned to blame me from the beginning. Dad said if the credit card companies ever questioned the charges, he would say you had given him permission to use your cards for family expenses. And you knew this. I knew it was wrong. I knew you never gave permission. But I was afraid to speak up because Dad said the whole family would be destroyed if anyone found out. So you chose to participate. I chose to be a coward. I chose to let my parents steal from you rather than risk confronting them. Shane, why are you calling me now? Because I want you to know I'm going to tell the truth in court. I'm going to admit what I did and what I knew, and I want you to know how sorry I am. Sorry doesn't undo the damage. I know, but it's the only thing I have left to give you. Shane, what happens to you after you testify? I'll probably have to transfer schools. I'll definitely have to find a new place to live. My probation officer will monitor my finances for 5 years, and I'll owe you money for the rest of my life. What about Mom and Dad? They hate me now. Mom called me a traitor. Dad said I'm not his son anymore. How do you feel about that? Relieved, honestly. I've been afraid of Dad my whole life. I've been enabling Mom's manipulation for years. Maybe losing them will force me to become a better person. 3 days later, Gerald and Patricia were formally charged in federal court. Local news stations covered the arraignment, reporting on the multi-victim family fraud case that had shocked the community. My phone rang constantly with calls from distant relatives, former neighbors, and curious acquaintances. Most of the calls were supportive, but some were critical. How could you send your own parents to prison? Families should work out problems privately. You're destroying their lives over money. But there were also calls of support. Mrs. Thompson, you're very brave, dear. You're protecting other potential victims. Luis Gonzalez, Your parents stole from everyone who trusted them. They need to face consequences. My former college roommate, Jennifer, I can't believe what you've been going through. You're doing the right thing. The most surprising call came from Patricia's sister, Diane. Armida, I owe you an apology. For what? For not believing you when you said Gerald and Patricia were stealing. I've been reviewing my credit reports and I found accounts I never opened. How much money? $22,000. Credit cards, a personal loan, and charges at stores I've never visited. Aunt Diane, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. Gerald and Patricia did this, not you. I should have listened when you tried to warn the family. What are you going to do? I'm hiring an attorney and joining the prosecution's case. Your parents stole from me while I was going through my divorce when I was most vulnerable emotionally and financially. Will you testify against them? Absolutely. They used my trust against me just like they used yours. How do you feel about Patricia being in jail? Angry, betrayed, but not surprised. Patricia has been manipulating people her entire life. She finally got caught. The family is saying I destroyed everything. You didn't destroy anything, Armida. Gerald and Patricia destroyed their own family when they chose to commit crimes. You just refused to enable their behavior. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for being brave enough to fight back. If you hadn't pursued charges, they would have kept stealing until they destroyed more lives. That evening, I drove past my childhood home. Yellow crime scene tape still fluttered from the front porch where FBI agents had conducted their search. The house looked smaller and shabbier than I remembered. A neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, waved to me from her yard. Armida, I wanted you to know that most of the neighbors support what you did. Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez. Your father tried to overcharge my husband for landscaping work last year. When Carlos questioned the bill, Gerald became very angry and threatened to sue us. I'm sorry that happened. Don't be sorry, we should have reported him then. Maybe if we had, you wouldn't have gone through all this. Driving home, I realized that Gerald and Patricia's crimes had affected far more people than I had initially understood. They had been running scams and manipulation tactics throughout their community for years. Their arrest was not destroying a family. It was stopping a criminal enterprise that had been harming innocent people. I had not ruined their lives. I had ended their ability to ruin other people's lives. And that felt like justice. 6 months later, I stood outside the federal courthouse on a crisp October morning, watching Gerald and Patricia Green walk up the courthouse steps in handcuffs and orange jumpsuits. Their attorneys flanked them, carrying briefcases full of last-minute plea negotiations that would never be accepted. David Martinez stood beside me, reviewing his notes one final time. Are you ready for this, Armida? I've been ready since the day I discovered their crimes. Remember, Gerald's attorney will try to portray you as vindictive and money-hungry. Stay calm, stick to the facts, and let the evidence speak for itself. What do you think will happen? Gerald is facing overwhelming evidence from multiple victims. His fake documentation has been exposed as forgeries. The jury will see through his lies. Agent Jennifer Walsh approached us from across the courthouse plaza. Miss Green, I wanted to update you on Gerald's final plea offer. What did he offer? 15 years in federal prison with full restitution to all victims. He would plead guilty to all charges and cooperate with our investigation of other fraud cases. Did you accept it? The prosecutor rejected the offer. Given the scope of Gerald's crimes and his attempts to frame you with fake evidence, they want to pursue maximum sentences. What's the maximum? 25 to 30 years for Gerald, 12 to 15 years for Patricia. And if they're convicted on all charges, they'll likely receive sentences close to the maximum. Federal judges don't appreciate defendants who attempt to destroy their victims' credibility with fabricated evidence. Eleanor Thompson and Luis Gonzalez joined us on the courthouse steps. Eleanor looked determined and resolute, while Luis appeared nervous but committed. How are you feeling about testifying, Mrs. Thompson? I asked. Ready to see justice served. Gerald stole my retirement savings and left me struggling to pay for basic necessities. He deserves whatever sentence he receives. Luis, how has this affected your business? I had to close Green Family Enterprises and start over with a new company. The negative publicity and financial losses nearly destroyed everything I worked for. Luis's voice grew stronger. But I'm grateful we caught Gerald before he stole everything. Are you both prepared for the defense strategy? They'll probably claim we're all lying or confused, Eleanor said. But the evidence speaks for itself. Bank records don't lie. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Gerald's attorney attempted to portray him as a struggling businessman who made poor decisions under financial pressure. They claimed the identity theft was actually informal family financial arrangements that Armida had misunderstood due to mental health issues. Patricia's attorney argued that she was a devoted wife who trusted her husband's business decisions without understanding their legal implications. They portrayed her as another victim of Gerald's manipulation. Shane testified for the prosecution, providing detailed accounts of how Gerald and Patricia had planned and executed their fraud schemes. His testimony was devastating to his parents' defense. My father taught me how to use Armida's credit card information, Shane told the jury. He said it was okay because families share resources, but I knew Armida didn't know about the charges because she was never included in family activities we paid for with her money. Did your mother participate in these activities? The prosecutor asked. My mother collected Armida's personal documents by photographing them during family visits. She helped my father practice forging Armida's signature. She coached me on what to say if anyone asked about the credit card usage. Did your parents plan to blame your sister if the fraud was discovered? Yes. They said if anyone questioned the charges, they would claim Armida had given permission and was now having a mental breakdown that caused her to forget her authorization. Gerald's fake evidence fell apart under forensic examination. Expert witnesses testified that the bank withdrawal slips contained forged signatures and that the security camera footage had been digitally altered. The alleged signatures show clear signs of tracing and computer manipulation. The handwriting expert testified. These documents were created to simulate authentic signatures, but they fail multiple authenticity tests. What about the security footage? The prosecutor asked. The video files show evidence of digital editing. The defendant's face has been superimposed onto different footage to create the appearance that Miss Green was present during bank transactions. Eleanor Thompson's testimony moved several jury members to tears. Gerald came to my home every week for months pretending to care about my health and well-being while planning to steal my life savings. He listened to me talk about my late husband while photographing my personal documents. He destroyed my ability to trust other people. Luis testified about the business fraud and Gerald's attempts to cover up his crimes. When I discovered missing funds, Gerald blamed bookkeeping errors and slow-paying customers. He convinced me to take out additional business loans to cover what he claimed were temporary cash flow problems. I later learned he was stealing the loan money for personal expenses. My own testimony lasted 2 days. Gerald's attorney attacked my credibility, my mental health history, and my motivations for pursuing prosecution. Miss Green, isn't it true that you were struggling financially and needed money from your family? No, that's false. Isn't it true that you participated in family financial arrangements and later regretted your involvement? I never participated in or authorized any financial arrangements. I was the victim of identity theft and fraud. Isn't it true that you're pursuing this prosecution for revenge against parents who disappointed you? I'm pursuing this prosecution because my parents committed federal crimes and need to face appropriate consequences. The prosecutor's closing argument was powerful and straightforward. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about trust, betrayal, and accountability. Gerald and Patricia Green systematically stole from people who trusted them. Their own daughter, an elderly neighbor, a business partner, and a vulnerable sister-in-law. They planned their crimes carefully, executed them over multiple years, and attempted to cover them up with lies and fake evidence. When their crimes were discovered, they tried to destroy their own daughter's reputation and credibility. This is not a family dispute about money. This is a criminal enterprise that destroyed lives and relationships for personal gain. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood and delivered guilty verdicts on all charges against both Gerald and Patricia. Gerald showed no emotion as the verdicts were read. Patricia sobbed quietly, her shoulders shaking with each guilty pronouncement. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for 8 weeks later. Gerald received 28 years in federal prison. Patricia received 12 years. Both were ordered to pay full restitution to all victims, including punitive damages and legal fees. Mr. and Mrs. Green, the judge said during sentencing, "You violated the most basic bonds of family trust and human decency. You targeted vulnerable people who loved and trusted you, and you used that trust as a weapon against them. Your crimes have caused immeasurable damage to your victims' financial security, emotional well-being, and ability to trust other people. Your attempts to frame your own daughter with fabricated evidence demonstrate a level of callousness that warrants the maximum sentences allowed by law." Walking out of the courthouse after sentencing, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief that justice had been served, sadness for the family relationships that were permanently destroyed, gratitude for the support I had received from other victims and law enforcement professionals. David Martinez put his hand on my shoulder. "How are you feeling?" "Free. For the first time in years, I feel completely free." "The financial restitution should begin within 60 days. The court has ordered the liquidation of your parents' assets to pay victim compensation." "What about my credit report?" "All fraudulent accounts have been removed. Your credit score has been restored to its pre-fraud level." "And my security clearance?" "Fully reinstated. Your employer has been notified of the successful prosecution." Agent Walsh joined us outside the courthouse. "Miss Green, I wanted to thank you for your courage throughout this investigation. Your willingness to pursue justice despite family pressure made it possible to stop a criminal enterprise that could have harmed many more victims." "Thank you for believing me and taking my case seriously. I also wanted to let you know that Gerald and Patricia's conviction has led to additional investigations. We've identified at least 12 other potential victims who were targeted by similar schemes. Will those cases be prosecuted? We're working with local prosecutors to pursue charges. Your case provided the evidence and legal precedent we needed to investigate other fraud complaints that had been dismissed as family disputes." Standing on the courthouse steps, I realized that pursuing justice for myself had protected other potential victims from experiencing the same betrayal and financial devastation. Gerald and Patricia would spend decades in prison, but their victims would rebuild their lives with dignity and compensation. Justice had been served. The truth had prevailed, and I had learned that standing up to abusers was not just about protecting myself. It was about protecting everyone they might hurt in the future. 1 year later, I stood in the conference room of my new nonprofit organization, Hope Financial Recovery, reviewing case files with my staff of 3 victim advocates and 2 financial counselors. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Sacramento, illuminating a space that represented everything I had built from the ashes of my family's betrayal. "Sarah, what's the status on the Johnson family case?" I asked my lead advocate, a former prosecutor who had left the district attorney's office to join our mission. "The credit reporting agencies have agreed to remove all fraudulent accounts. Mrs. Johnson's credit score should be restored within 30 days. Her daughter's college financial aid has been reinstated now that the family income calculations no longer include fraudulent debt. Any word on asset recovery?" "The perpetrator's house is going to auction next month. Mrs. Johnson should receive approximately $40,000 in restitution, which covers 80% of her losses." "That's excellent progress." My administrative assistant knocked on the conference room door. "Armida Eleanor Thompson is here for your lunch meeting." Eleanor walked into our office using a lightweight cane, but moving with the energy and purpose of someone who had reclaimed her life. At 83, she remained one of our most active volunteers, helping other elderly victims navigate the complex process of identity theft recovery. "How are things progressing, dear?" Eleanor asked, settling into a comfortable chair beside my desk. "We've helped 68 families recover from financial fraud this year. Our success rate for credit restoration is 94%, and we've recovered approximately $2.3 million for victims." "That's wonderful. How many perpetrators have been prosecuted?" 41 criminal cases with 37 convictions so far. "Any family fraud cases?" 18. It's more common than people realize, and victims are often reluctant to pursue prosecution because of family pressure. Eleanor nodded knowingly. I remember how guilty I felt about sending Gerald to prison, even though he had stolen my retirement savings. "How do you feel about it now?" "Grateful. Not just for the financial recovery, but for learning that I deserve to be treated with respect and honesty, even by people who claim to love me. That's a lesson I'm still learning myself." "Have you heard anything from your family?" "Shane writes letters occasionally. He's doing well in college, working part-time and making restitution payments. He seems to understand the damage that was done and is working to become a better person." "What about your parents?" "Gerald is in federal prison in Nevada. He'll be eligible for parole in 22 years when he's 80 years old. Patricia is in a women's facility in Arizona. She'll be eligible for parole in 8 years. "Do they ever try to contact you?" "Gerald wrote me one letter about 6 months ago. He claimed he was sorry and wanted to rebuild our relationship when he gets out of prison." "How did you respond?" "I didn't respond. Some relationships can't be repaired, and that's okay." Eleanor reached across my desk and squeezed my hand. "You've built something beautiful from a terrible experience." "We all have. Luis Gonzalez started a new landscaping business that's thriving. His reputation recovered once people understood he was a victim, not an accomplice. Shane is studying business ethics in college and plans to work in fraud prevention. Even you started volunteering with elderly advocacy groups. Your courage gave all of us permission to rebuild our lives instead of hiding in shame." My office phone rang. Sarah answered, then looked up with excitement. "Armida, that was Channel 8 News. They want to interview you about the family fraud prevention bill that passed the state legislature." "What specifically do they want to discuss?" "How your case led to stronger legal protections for identity theft victims and better training for law enforcement to recognize family fraud cases." Eleanor smiled proudly. "You've become quite the advocate." "I learned from watching other people fight back. Luis could have given up when his business partnership was destroyed. You could have accepted the loss of your retirement savings. Shane could have continued enabling our parents' behavior. Instead, you all chose to demand accountability and work for positive change. We chose to believe we deserved better treatment." "Exactly." The afternoon news interview went well. The reporter asked thoughtful questions about family fraud victim resources and prevention strategies. She was particularly interested in the emotional aspects of prosecuting family members. "Many people wonder how you found the strength to send your own parents to prison," the reporter said. "I found the strength by understanding that enabling criminal behavior is not love. Real love includes accountability, honesty, and respect. My parents' actions showed that they did not love me in any healthy or sustainable way. They loved what I could provide for them financially, while they excluded me from their emotional and social lives." "What advice do you give to other family fraud victims?" "Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. Document everything. Seek professional help from attorneys, law enforcement, and mental health professionals. And remember that you are not responsible for other people's choices, including their choice to commit crimes." "How has this experience changed you?" "It taught me the difference between family and healthy relationships. Family is defined by DNA. Healthy relationships are defined by mutual respect, honesty, and genuine care for each other's well-being. I now have deep, meaningful relationships with people who support my growth and happiness rather than exploiting my loyalty." Do you ever regret pursuing prosecution? Never. Gerald and Patricia harmed multiple victims and would have continued harming people if they hadn't been stopped. Protecting future victims was more important than preserving relationships that were built on deception and abuse. That evening, I sat in my new home, a small house I had purchased with money recovered from the fraud restitution, reviewing applications from people who wanted to volunteer with Hope Financial Recovery. Many were former victims who had rebuilt their lives and wanted to help others do the same. Luis Gonzalez had applied to serve on our board of directors. Mrs. Thompson wanted to expand her volunteer work to include financial literacy education. Shane had asked if he could volunteer with our prevention programs once his probation period ended. My phone rang. Dr. Sarah Chen, the therapist who had helped me process the emotional aspects of family betrayal during the legal proceedings. Armida, I wanted to call and check in on your 1-year anniversary. Anniversary. 1 year ago today, Gerald and Patricia were sentenced. I had forgotten the exact date. How are you feeling? Happy. Genuinely happy for the first time in years. I wake up every morning excited about the work we're doing and the people we're helping. You've created meaning from trauma. I've learned that the best response to injustice is working to prevent other people from experiencing the same injustice. What about personal relationships? Are you dating anyone? I've been seeing someone for a few months. Marcus, the bank investigator who worked on my case initially. He understands the importance of honesty and accountability in relationships. That sounds promising. It is. We're taking things slowly, but we have similar values and life goals. Are you thinking about having children someday? Maybe. If I do, they'll grow up understanding that love includes respect and boundaries. They'll know that family loyalty never requires accepting abuse or enabling harmful behavior. You've broken the cycle. I hope so. After Dr. Chen hung up, I walked outside to my small backyard garden. I had planted vegetables, herbs, and flowers, growing things that would nourish and beautify rather than exploit and destroy. My phone buzzed with a text message from Marcus. Dinner tomorrow, I have news about the Thompson case appeal. I texted back, yes, can't wait to hear the update. Another text arrived from Sarah at the office. The Martinez family just called. The court ordered full restitution plus damages. They want to send you flowers to thank you for the referral. A final text came from Shane Armida. I got the internship at the fraud prevention nonprofit in Chicago. Thank you for showing me that accountability leads to better opportunities, not fewer ones. Standing in my garden as the sun set behind the mountains, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment. 3 years ago, I was a quiet marketing professional who avoided conflict and tried to please everyone. I accepted financial abuse as the price of family relationships and confused loyalty with enabling. Today, I was the founder of a successful nonprofit organization that had helped dozens of families recover from financial trauma. I had healthy relationships built on mutual respect and honest communication. I owned my own home, had financial security, and felt optimistic about my future. Most importantly, I had learned to value myself enough to demand ethical treatment from other people. I understood that protecting myself from abuse was not selfish. It was necessary for building authentic, sustainable relationships. Gerald and Patricia would spend decades in prison, but their crimes had inadvertently taught me lessons about strength, integrity, and resilience that I would carry for the rest of my life. They had intended to use me as their personal bank while excluding me from their love and respect. Instead, they had created a victim who became an advocate, a daughter who learned to choose justice over comfort, and a woman who transformed betrayal into purpose. I had not just survived their abuse. I had built a meaningful life dedicated to ensuring that other victims could do the same. The phone in my house rang, interrupting my reflections. Another family in crisis, probably needing guidance about financial fraud or identity theft. I walked inside to answer the call, ready to offer hope to someone whose world had just been shattered by people they trusted. Hope Financial Recovery, this is Armida. How can we help you? Ms. Green, my name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm calling because my ex-husband has been using our children's social security numbers to open credit accounts, and I don't know what to do. Jennifer, you've reached the right place. We help families in exactly your situation. You're going to get through this, and we're going to help you every step of the way. Really, you can help us? Yes, and more importantly, you're going to learn that you're stronger than you ever imagined. People who betray your trust don't get to define your future. Thank you. I was starting to think I was crazy for being upset about this. You're not crazy. You're a mother protecting her children from financial abuse. That's exactly what you should be doing. What happens next? Next, you reclaim your power, demand accountability, and build a better future for yourself and your children. Trust me, it's going to be the most challenging and most rewarding work you'll ever do. As I began walking Jennifer through her options for legal action, financial recovery, and emotional support, I felt the deep satisfaction that came from transforming personal pain into collective healing. Gerald and Patricia had stolen my money, but they had never owned my spirit. They had betrayed my trust, but they had taught me to trust more wisely. They had tried to destroy my future, but they had actually liberated me to create a future based on my own values rather than their expectations. I had won more than a legal case. I had won my freedom to choose love over loyalty, truth over comfort, and justice over family dysfunction. And I was using that freedom to help other people win their own battles against financial abuse and family betrayal. The best revenge was not revenge at all. It was living well, helping others live well, and refusing to let abusers define the limits of what victims could achieve. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and standing up for what's right? It's one of the hardest decisions anyone can face, but sometimes protecting yourself means protecting others too. What would you have done in my situation? If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please hit that like button if you believe victims of family fraud deserve support and justice. Subscribe to hear more stories about people who found the courage to break cycles of abuse and build better lives. And share this story with anyone who might need to hear that they deserve honest, respectful relationships, even from family members. Thank you for listening to my story and for supporting survivors of financial abuse. Remember, you are worth more than what others can take from you. You deserve relationships built on trust, respect, and genuine love. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is holding people accountable for their choices. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and never stop believing that justice is possible.